Hello and welcome. So my name is Stephen Fortuna, and this is the show where we bring together HR experts to discuss and really break down the fundamentals of important HR topics. So today we'll be discussing compensation strategies, and I have with me actually four amazing guests who are going to be breaking this down and talking us through it. So I'll introduce them now. Here they are. Welcome. So we have HR manager Ryan Archibald with us, Millie Chrisman, who's the founder of Marathon Growth Management, HR manager Heather Anderson, and last but not least, Chris Ruddy, who is an HR and operations specialist at Skillstruck. And let's dive right in. So we're actually going to start and just give some baseline definitions, right? What is a compensation strategy? And I'd love actually, Chris, if you could start this conversation off for us.
So in simple terms, a compensation strategy is how you're compensating or paying your employees for the job or work that they do at your company. So that's kind of like the simple way to do it. Is like, how are we paying the people that work at our company?
Love it. And what kind of format does that take, Chris? Is that just like a document that people create? What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah. So that looks like, well, with most things in HR, you're wanting to document the policies that you have at your company. So that can mean it has to be written down in a lot of ways. And also it's the way that you communicate it and just the way that it is like done in your in your company. And so and like in simple ways like that. And so, that's basically what I would say is that it should be written down. It should be something that's also discussed at length and researched continually as you're in your company.
Yeah, I love the way you said that too. It's just how things are done, right? Like it's integrated throughout everything you do in your HR program. Millie, I'd love to bring you in here. Let's give some more kind of concrete examples to the listeners. What are some examples of common compensation strategies that you see businesses pursuing?
Well, there's in Comp 101, when you really learn this stuff, there's three tried and true strategies that you can adopt, and then color them based on the characteristics of your business. And those three, and these have not changed over decades, honestly. Those three are all relative to the market. You can either choose to lead the market in compensation, you can lag or fall behind a little bit the market in compensation, or you can choose to be at market compensation. And just to build on Chris's point about writing things down, it's really, I strongly recommend that companies have a compensation philosophy that they write down. And where it is published is highly dependent upon the culture and the transparency in that company. But there should be a philosophy hanging around the leadership's desk, because a lot of other operational strategies, sales and marketing strategies down the line should align with this strategy around compensation. So just to throw that out there, in addition to the three ones that you kind of have to choose from and then make them your own. And we can certainly talk about that too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think there's definitely more to dive in as we keep going. But I love this vision of having this compensation strategy that integrates into everything the business does. And I think that really leads into kind of what we want to talk about next, which is the why. Like, let's take a step back for a second. Why should anyone even be watching this video? What are really the benefits that a company will gain by defining that compensation strategy up front and getting it right? And Heather, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this up front, and then go to Ryan as well and kind of get your input on the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like it's absolutely imperative to have more of a defined compensation strategy and having it there. One, how else are you going to remain competitive? It's so critical, especially for recruitment. We all struggle with recruitment right now. We've got one of the lowest unemployment rates as far as Utah goes, and other states are having the same issues. So having that defined compensated strategy along with that philosophy, like Millie was saying, helps you keep that competitive edge. But it also helps your company as a whole as far as like predictive costs for future projection, looking at your company's budgets. But a pay equality and pay transparency is very big right now. So that's also something to take into consideration as well with keeping your employees' morale high and making sure that they know everyone's being treated equally, everyone's fair, this is how the company feels about it, and this is what we're doing to keep going that direction.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess like the danger of it is if you don't have a strategy in place, you'll fall into those traps of paying certain people less or yeah, just doing things in a non-competitive way, a non-equitable way. Thank you. Ryan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well, kind of the benefits of having that strategy up front.
Yeah, Heather hit it all on the head. The biggest thing is it's the key component of your recruiting strategy. When candidates come and they just say, hey, why should I care? Why should I want to work at company A or company B? And the compensation is part of that employee value proposition. It's just like, hey, here's why you should work for us. You're going to get paid competitive wages. We're going to be above the market because we want to make sure we get the best people we can.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Let's move into, I think we have a clear vision of the what and the why. I think the meat of our conversation is going to be in the how. How do we actually pick a strategy and then apply it throughout the organization? So you guys have really, I'd love, Ryan, again, your thoughts on this, and then Millie as well. But you guys have kind of hit on something where you said, it's important to be above the market because that makes you more competitive. It makes you get all the talent that you need. Millie kind of laid out those three basic strategies. And you guys seem to be favoring the above the market strategy. How does a company really decide which of those three strategies is the best? And is it always that, above the market type strategy? What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
That's a conversation with the senior leadership team. My personal approach, if it's a big question like that for recruiting, I walk in there and be like, okay, our accounting team, where are we at? Are we going to beat the market? Are we going to lag it? Or are we going to meet it as well? And that discussion often grows to the company as a whole. So yes, maybe there's one team that you want to beat the market in. You'll do whatever it takes to get that talent in the door. Others may not be seen as important, but you still want to get the best people. So you'll meet the market there as well. And with that, in that conversation comes in the other benefits and perks at the organization. So when that candidate looks at everything offered by the company, they get a better look at what the company is offering.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Millie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of that. How do you decide which of the three to go after?
Stephen, so what I would add to that is I think some things you should look at is what industry are you in and where are you currently relative to industry? I think it's important to know your market niche. I think you should also take a look at your brand of your product or service, your employer brand, and how popular are you? Is there a way to figure out how hard or not hard is it for you to recruit? And that might force you to be above market. For example, if you're having a really hard time recruiting, it might force you to pick that strategy. Whether you like it or not might not have a relevance. The other component I would encourage folks to think about is your geography. Are you nationwide, or are you limited to one particular state, or are you limited to a rural area where there's maybe limited jobs and there's an abundant talent pool, or perhaps the reverse? So I think you have to look at a lot of different factors to make this determination. Some you have complete control over, some you don't. But by looking at all of those things, a leadership team can get together and really think through, hey, what's the best place for us to play. And one just additional thought is you might pick a philosophy or a strategy for the entire company, but if there's a particular position or role that somehow needs something different, you should not have handcuffs on. You can choose to be at market, maybe, except for these two identified positions for these three reasons. And to key off something Chris said, you should revisit this on an annual basis to make sure that that strategy still has relevance.
Yeah. Thank you, Melanie. And I'd love to bring Chris back into this conversation on that note. I mean, if you pick that compensation strategy, we've kind of already identified like a few times when you might go against the strategy. You might pick a role that needs to be compensated more than others, or you might revisit every year and refix it. How would you, Chris, approach kind of like adjusting your strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I come from in the world of startups, and when you're in a startup, oftentimes you're constrained a lot by budget, and you have to be strategic. I guess there's that market, that compensation strategy. You have to be strategic as you're building your business. And so what is the focus of my business right now? Am I trying to build revenue, or am I trying to retain that revenue? It's clearly you'd want to add more to sales if you're trying to build a company through revenue. And you have like this much funding from an investor, and you have to chop it up into pieces. Well, I'm going to have to allocate this much towards sales. Therefore, I must be maybe lead the market a little bit, or be at market value for the compensation strategy for sales versus human resources or accounting, or bookkeeping. So I think that you have to like consider, how's that strategy, part of my business. So like, for example, in other companies that I've been in, we've gotten to a point where it's been like, okay, well, yeah, we can start meeting market for these departments. And it's like, great, because we've actually met those goals. We've met, those. And so oftentimes with startups and smaller businesses, as many of our viewers will be part of, you'll be in situations where you have to be lagging the market a little bit, which as far as our conversation is concerned to this point has kind of been the lower end of things. But oftentimes you don't have the choice. And also at the same time, you kind of have to like we've talked about before, look at other ways to compensate people. Like what are the benefits, the non-monetary benefits that I can offer? What is the team culture like? Do people like being on this team? Will they be on this team? Is it mission driven? And so like I'm spewing a lot of stuff, but yeah, no, I've had a lot of experience with the lagging side and kind of the smaller business side. And so it's kind of enlightening to be part of it.
And it's interesting. You kind of, first of all, we're kind of talking about how your compensation strategy needs to be an extension of your company strategy. And so that means favoring some teams, like you said. I also liked what you said around, other like consider other things outside of just monetary benefits when you're putting together your compensation strategy. So although you may be lagging, there are other ways in which you can provide a sort of compensation that's above market. I think that's really, like you said, important for startups and others. This is great. So Heather, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the who, right? So we've talked a lot about, we're talking to HR professionals right now, and explaining to them like, okay, this is what it is. This is how you do it, why it's important. An HR professional might leave this conversation and get super excited, and they feel like we need to pursue this strategy. Who do they need to bring along with them? Who do they need to bring on board and convince and have in the room to make this actual formal decision around a compensation strategy?
I think this is HR 101 with any big change, whether it be compensation or anything. You have to have buy-in from your leaders. That's something that SHRM preaches to their HR professionals as well. And I've fallen in that trap myself, where you get really excited. It sounds awesome. You see all the perks. People are going to love it. and then you take it to your managers and it gets shut down. So it's the second that you start having these conversations, you need to get those stakeholders involved. You need to get those higher ups in the company involved, whoever those major decision makers. When looking at compensation, who's the CFO? Who's in charge of the financials for that company? Get involved with their conversations, find out what they're looking for, and start asking those questions so that you've got a key indicator as to what you need to go out and look for. You know, is the company even in a position where we could potentially meet the market? Do we need to be a little bit more behind? What other options do we have? And bring all those to the table so that you can have those intelligent conversations with those key decision makers. And that way, as you're putting forth that energy and you're getting excited and you're building on this, it's not going to be all for naught. You're putting your time and energy, and ultimately, your time and energy computes to money as well. You're putting it towards something that's going to become something.
Yeah, I liked what you said there. Like, it'll be, you don't have everyone on board, it's going to be all for naught. That's like kind of that's just how it is. Does anyone else have any other insights they'd like to share around, how to advocate for a particular strategy, especially coming from an HR department?
Yeah, I think being data-based is always really helpful. So as the HR person, if there's any way you could get your hands on some data, and there are plenty of resources, various economic business councils and whatnot, depending upon where you live, or, call one of us. I'm sure we'll all help you. But if you can just get your hands around some data so that you have a logical why behind your what, if you're advocating to be above market or at market or lagging market, or that sort of mixed use, as I referenced earlier, as long as you have a why, that would be really helpful. And the piece about stakeholders that Heather mentioned, I cannot tell you how critical that is, because it's the difference between making it and failing, particularly when you have a selling organization, and those revenue comments are critical. But one metric that I think is always interesting to bring up to the CFO is, hey, what percentage of revenue are we spending right now, and percentage of profit, different numbers, on our labor line on the P&L? Because that's typically your biggest expense on any P&L that I've ever witnessed in my entire career. And see where that percentage is, and get help from the CFO and just say, hey, are we in line with what our competitors do? So that kind of gives you a little bit of a help on budget, which gives you the freedom to determine whether or not you have a choice to lag, lead, or meet the market. So that's just a little financial piece of advice I'd throw out there for the HR professionals.
Yeah, I love it. Like, sounds like make a beeline for the CFO, whoever's in charge of financials first, and really that's where you're going to get that data from, where you can start to make better decisions.
Right.
Otherwise, 100%, yeah, you're probably going to, if you walk into the room and say we need to compensate at a super high level, but the company's burning cash like crazy, then yeah, I mean, that's a great insight. Let's talk about applying the compensation strategy now. So you've gotten everyone in the room and they're all on board and they're like, let's do it. Let's go for above market. We're going to blow our competitors out of the water, attract the best talent. Ryan, I'd love to hear kind of what would your next steps be if kind of the CEO gives you the mandate and says, okay, we're doing above the market, go make it happen across the organization. What would be some of the ways you would apply that strategy now?
First, kind of bouncing off the previous discussion, is getting the operations manager involved. My past employment is with Amazon at their order fulfillment centers. So grabbing in someone who knows the jobs off of that and just saying, hey, this is what we're looking at. Does this match where the value is in the supply chain, in that order fulfillment process? And we might think the people packing the trailer is the best one, is going to be the one we need to pay the most for. Talking to the operations guy, he says, no, that's actually, it's going to be the guys in the middle that are putting orders in the boxes, taping it together, making sure that product gets to the customer safely. And so making any adjustments, it was described to me as a three-legged stool: business success, including HR, operations, and finance. Because each of us have that unique insight into making sure, do we have what we need to get to ultimately succeed at whatever our mission is for a company. For Amazon, it's getting people their iPhone cases or whatever it may be. After that, then you just got to make sure you test the market, put it out there. And if you're getting applicants in, making sure it matches what this person needs to accomplish, what this position needs to accomplish.
Yeah.
If you want to pay, if above market is $20 an hour and you're only getting high school seniors and you're looking for a college graduate, okay, that's got to change.
Yeah. And let's talk more about that too, around like knowing whether the strategy you picked was successful. And by the way, I liked what you said, Ryan, just like, again, it's that theme of HR not going it alone, bringing in operations too, and bringing the whole team together. But yeah, let's keep going in the direction you were just moving around, validating the strategy that you chose. Heather, what would you expect to see? Like, how would you know if your strategy was successful? I guess we'll just put it that way.
Yeah, that's always the key question, that's for sure. Biggest thing is, I mean, you want to continue, like, especially if you already have a smaller workforce when you're really developing this compensation strategy compared to a startup. Maybe your company's going through a big change, or you're going through a merger or acquisition and you're having to realign everything. You want to make sure that you have those conversations with everyone that it affects. You've got your operations, you've checked the pay scales, you've made sure the value's there. Let's get the employees involved. Have the open conversations. Let them ask their questions, because they are what's going to make or break the success of this. Either they're going to like it or they're not. And if there's a lack of communication, that's where confusion comes into play. That's when people don't know why, so they're going to make up a why. And that can make or break your entire organization. If you see a mass exodus, go, well, why did they leave? What is the exit interview data telling you? Is it because they just didn't understand why? Did they not see the benefits that's coming to them in the long run? Did they not understand, the situation? COVID was a big thing that just happened with everybody. We all kind of had to have some of those hard conversations, and every company had to do things differently. Maybe yours was one where the compensation strategy had to change to adjust. Are you telling them why? Because if they like it, then you've got the added bonus of word of mouth. They're going to talk to people about it. My company was awesome. They did X, Y, Z. So you're going to see an influx of way more applicants than you were expecting to see, which is awesome. But your retention is going to be there. Your turnover rate is going to go down. You're going to see these positive numbers in the data, but you have to track the data, and you have to make sure you keep that open door communication with your whole team.
Yeah, I love that. And love how you're pointing to both kind of the quantitative and the qualitative of talking with your employees, but also looking at the turnover rates and looking at the exit interview data. And yeah, all of that coming together to form that picture of whether or not your strategy is successful. Does anyone else have any other insights around just validating your compensation strategy they'd like to share?
Yeah, the one thing I would add on to Heather's list, which is a great list, is employee performance and productivity. So if the company is making the goals, well, let me step back. Why do we have people? Why do we pay people to make stuff and services and get stuff done? So if those things are happening on time, and the company is seeing a profit and everything's going well, then there are a lot of things working, including your comp plan. So those financial indicators, I think, broadly are the macro view. And then you go down to things like exit interviews and turnover for the micro view. And one thing I would add to Heather's great list is stay interviews. So that they're the proactive sister to an exit interview, But you can take a handful of employees, or depending upon how big your organization is, all of them, and sit down and ask them about no more than 3 or 4 questions around why they choose to stay, and see if comp comes up. And if it does, what is it that they like about it or not? And that can be a tremendous learning, but just always be willing, you HR professionals out there, to do something with that data if you're going to ask those questions and have those conversations.
Yeah, I love it. Collect the data and do something with it, and get it from every avenue you can. Thank you guys so much. That was our kind of last topic to discuss. I thought this was really helpful conversation. I hope those watching at home thought so too. Thank you guys so much for participating. It means a lot to me and to those watching. If you guys want to learn more about compensation strategies, so this is to those watching now, you can actually read our encyclopedia entry on it, and you can actually reach out to these panelists. So I'll be including links to both the entry and each of the panelists' HR Mavericks profile pages, so you'll be able to get to know them better. But thank you so much to you guys and to those watching. We hope you have a great rest of your day.